At the center of the strive to deepen democracy by building capacities of legislative institutions at the national, states, and on the African continent is an agency. Now, that agency is a repository of knowledge that has continued to make Nigerians proud. The National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, NILDS, established in 2011, is coming on strong with proactive measures using research, digital technology, training and capacity building to guide policies and direction of service delivery by the country's legislature. NILDS not only serves as a supporting pillar for Nigeria's parliament, but for the legislature at states and local councils to enhance effective discharge of constituency mandates by elected lawmakers. I'm Ayodeji Makinde. This is Reshaping Democracy. From the foregoing, as the name implies, National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, NILDS, is providing the necessary steps for ease of governance in all the tiers of government. The Director General, NILDS, Professor Abubakar Olanrewaju Suleiman, is on Reshaping Democracy in response to citizens' questions, illuminating the Institute's great leap in mandate delivery.
How is NILDS working to promote citizen participation in governance, particularly in the legislative process, to ensure that the voices of all Nigerians are heard?
The National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies is the capacity building institutions under Nigerian Parliament. When I talk of Nigerian Parliament, I mean the subnational legislature and the federal legislature. I talk of the House of Rep and the Senate. It's not just the capacity building for Nigerian legislature, but for Nigerian democratic institutions. Is one institution that was established by an act of parliament to provide technical assistance, to provide technical interventions, conduct researches, assist the parliament in lawmaking, in representation functions, and as well as the oversight functions. And in the course of that, nurture the skill of every democratic actors, both the informal sector, talk of the political party, you talk of the even informal sector, the NGO, the CSO. So the question is in tandem, with our mandates. How do we nurture the skill? How do we provide democratic, dissemination of information to the people? How do we serve Nigerian people? And you see, most importantly, our mandate is not just to train. In the course of training, the various parliamentary institutions, we are nurturing democratic ethics and principle. We're assisting the lawmakers, nurture them in their capacity build-up, nurture them in their technical know-how, put them through in their mandate of making law, representations. You see, the various laws that are coming from the lawmakers, from the Senate, from the House of Rep, in terms of how those laws are being drafted, is being done by the Institute. How the motion are being moved is being done by the Institute. And what we do is that we don't wait till these lawmakers request. In other words, our responsibility, our briefs, our assistance come in two forms, either through what we call demand-driven or supply-driven. Demand-driven are those that they call on us, okay, please, DG, the Institute, we are looking at these issues. Can you please help us with a motion? Can you help us with a bill? Can you help us with a brief? What is your opinion about it? That is demand-driven. Again, when we observe some fundamental national issue or project or question that need to be looked into, on our own, we send brief to them. On our own, we generate bills. On our own, we generate motion. So by doing that, we are deepening democracy. We're assisting our governments, the lawmakers, in coming out with qualitative policies and legislation.
Professor, sir, What specific reforms or initiatives NILDS contributing to enhance the effectiveness of service provision by the Nigerian legislature?
The formation or the establishment of the institute came after the emergence, after the country ushered into a new democratic regime in 1999. We have three organs of government. We have the executive, we have the judiciary, we have the legislature. In our 65 years of democratic sojourn, so to speak, we've had a series of political instability. We have had a lot of military interregnum. And because of this military intervention, we have denied the legislature the requisite knowledge and experience they ought to have acquired the years. The legislature remains the epitome of democracy. The legislature remains the main fulcrum of democracy. Without executive, you can still have legacy, you can still have democracy. Without judiciary, perhaps, you can still have democracy. But without legislature, then there's no democracy. When you talk of government of the people, the only organ that epitomizes that representations, mass representation of the people, is through the instrumentality of the legislature. So over the years, because of the military intervention, we could not give them the requisite knowledge. We could not acquire knowledge of lawmaking, of representations, of oversight. So when this place was set up, sometimes about 20 years ago, under the Goodluck Jonathan government, the essence is to close that gap, to bridge the gap, the knowledge gap that have been existing over the years as a result of the military intervention in politics. How do you keep them at par with their counterparts in judiciary? How do you bring them at par with their counterparts in executive? Lawmaking is a specialized assignment, it's a specialized business. How do we make law? It can be a professor. But when it comes to lawmaking, it has its own concept, it has its own rudiment, it has its own tools. You need to learn it. So to learn it, therefore, let's put up an agency like this. Hence this agency. One, to nurture the skills of the lawmakers. Two, to provide incisive research for them. Three, to assist them in their technical assignment, bills, motion. And beyond that, to even train younger lawmakers.
What training programs has National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies organized in recent times for legislators and legislative staff to boost their capacity to make informed decisions for effective constituency representations all over the country?
For the parliamentarians, we run training programs on weekly basis. That is settled. I could recall about a year ago, even on constituency offices management alone, we partner with YAGA, an NGO, to train our legislature in the areas of constituency management offices nationwide. Secondly, as I'm speaking with you, the National Assembly staff, who are the parliamentary staff, they are undergoing a training program here in my institute. And we commenced this program since last 3 weeks thereabout. And the program takes care of 700 staff of parliamentary staff at National Assembly. In other words, the committees of legislature constitute the life wire of the legislature. They are the pillar. Legislature themselves, they are politicians. Lawmakers are politicians. They come and go. The support staff is the engine room. And I'm telling you that now, the support staff fall within the mandate of the institute to train in assisting the legislature on their day-to-day assignment. So in the last dispensation, Ninth Assembly, for instance, this institute trained more than 3,000 parliamentary aides. The aides are different from the parliamentary staff. Legislative aides are different from parliamentary staff. Parliamentary staff are staff of National Assembly that I'm telling you now we train, and we're still training. As we are speaking here, they are downstairs in the auditorium undergoing one training or the other. Then even the last session of Ninth Assembly, we are able to train the parliamentary aides of the parliamentarians, what to call their SLA. SLA, about more than 3,000 were trained. These are support staff, aides of the legislature that assist them in managing their constituency relation. Some of them are drawn from states. Some of them have their offices at the state level. We brought them here to Abuja and we trained them through. We came up with a study, for instance, what we call public perceptions of Nigerian people vis-a-vis their legislature. What do we expect them to do as they are coming into the parliament? What are your expectations as Nigerian people?
How is National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies leverage research and policy analysis to inform and guide decision-making processes in the legislature?
I think that's the distinct nature of our bandits. Unlike NGOs, unlike CSOs, and unlike other organizations that talk about trying to influence government policies or trying to disseminate certain information to the legislature in guiding them of their legislative process and procedure. Our own outputs are outputs that are informed by output of research. Our own output in terms of information, in terms of data, are data driven by evidence-based research. For instance, people talk about gender parity. They talk about gender inclusiveness. We talk about right of women. And you see people talking about women which must be involved. When we came into the issue of gender equality, we don't just talk about gender equality from the emotional point of view. We have to look at it logically, scientifically, to drive the argument to say, look, women have played their due. They have paid their due, national development, right from the past, and therefore we should be given this role. Then we try to look at a kind of comparative analysis, for instance. Oh, what took place in Rwanda, in Kenya, in South Africa, in Ghana. Oh, in Ghana today, in National Assembly of Ghana, we have about 30% of women in the parliament. In Rwanda, the same thing. In Kenya, the same thing. What happened in Nigeria? So by the time we now send in a kind of brief to National Assembly, we are looking at it from an informed position. Research, evidence-based research. Same apply to other areas, other sectorial areas.
What partnerships as NILDS established or plan to establish with local and international organizations to promote its mandates? And how can this promote democratic governance in Nigeria?
Most of our work in terms of daily routines, in terms of advocacy, in terms of training, capacity buildings, are supported not only by government, but by donor partners. I need to give them that kudos. I know quite frankly, and I appreciate most profoundly, the importance of the donor agencies or partners in the development of our country. I was the former Minister of National Planning, where most of these donations aids were being warehoused. And when I took over as the DG, we intensify in ensuring that we work closely with most of these donor partners. And frankly speaking, they have been very supportive. For instance, most of our gender-related issues are being supported by UN Women. We talk of the WFD too, that is Westminster Foundation of Democracy, a United Kingdom-based government-owned agency. They work closely with us on the issue of deepening democracy. For the past 6.5 years of my stewardship, I think if there's one donor partner from outside that has been very supportive in the areas of subnational training of our legislature, I think it's CAS, the German-based donor partners. And should there be any agency at all from outside that has been very supportive in the areas of trying to identify what has gone wrong with our security sector and trying to come up with security sector reform policies and legislation, I think it's the same current administration talk. So we have been working a little with, then talk of the local donor partners. We are working closely with YAGA, for instance. We are working closely with NNPC, for instance. We are working closely with the IPAC. And I can start mentioning, today at the Institute, we have more than 77 memorandum of understanding with a lot of organizations, that we are working with here. So I want to say, in line with the Atairu's question, that our work programs are incomplete without the support of the donor partners, both locally and internationally.
What specific initiatives is NILDS undertaking to strengthen the capacity of state assemblies to perform their oversight and legislative functions effectively?
I can say we have done so much for state assembly than even the National Assembly. And that is why I said we have about 32 of national state assembly that we are working with. Every year, also every session, before a new parliamentary business begins, we train all these assembly members from those states. And again, at times we have a kind of a tailored NILDS program for them. Our problem in Nigeria especially has to do with the high turnover rate. At every election, the numbers of parliamentarians that are being re-elected in drop. Most times from maybe 100 to 20 or 30. So for every new business year or session, you still have to retrain the fresher, the new ones. So through the support of the Conrad Administrator and through the leadership of some of the state assembly, we have been able to deepen the knowledge of most parliamentarians at the state assembly. Service delivery, in terms of programs, in terms of capacity building activities, does not start and stop with Nigerian Parliament. We extend our services to the ECOWAS sub-region, or what I call West Africa sub-region.
Sir, as a repository of knowledge, how is NILDS as an institution striving to achieve technological advancements in service provision, especially with the NILDS Digital Library?
We have the best e-library, parliamentary e-library in West Africa. Besides the quality of the literatures, of the materials, maybe you need to go to the library and see what obtains there. The numbers of literature we have that are online is even more than what we have on ground there. And through the online processes from transmission, you can have access to a lot of documents. What is happening in Benue State, in their chamber? What is happening in Niger State, in Gombe State, in Borno State, in Akwa Ibom, on monthly basis in terms of proceedings, in terms of legislations. We try to have access to all this and document them here. And any subscriber to our library will have access to this. So the point I'm making is that we try to digitalize everything we do here.
Sir, can you tell Nigerians some of the challenges NILDS faces in promoting democracy and good governance, and how are you working to surmount them to achieve the Institute's mandates?
We talk of funding, it's a challenge. We talk of some attempts at meddling into the operations of the institute by the politicians. It's a big challenge. While the institute is a research institution, trying to be independent, trying to provide alternative opinion on so many issues. Again, the leadership of the institute, they are the same politicians. So at times, it becomes very difficult to say what we are doing is wrong. So it takes a lot of, hardline posture on the leadership of this place too, to say, no, this is where to go. So that pressure, political pressure, interferences at times tend to creep into what we do. But again, because it's a research institution that, parade the best of researchers and employ the scientific instrument in what we do, we try not to cave in into this pressure, but it's still a challenge. We have not really experienced a situation whereby the leadership say, you must do this thing, and you don't do it, there's a penalty. I've not. That does not mean there are no attempts. There were attempts. But again, we resist that attempt too. And when we resist too, they allow it be. Then the ability to retain the best hand at times, the best staff, is another problem. That again has to do with funding. For instance, we have lost few staff to the hands of donor partners who are ready to give them 1 million as monthly salary, as against 200 we pay them here, 300 we pay them here. So retaining the best hand too has been a problem. But again, through the welfare or the welfareist postures and policy of the management of the institute too, and because of the patriotism on the side of the staff too, we'll be able to summon this one too. To me, these are the three major issues. But if you can get more funding, sincerely yours, we can compete with any research institution across the globe.
Oh yes, you've heard it all from the professor that knows his onions. It's worth noting that NILDS has in recent times trained over 10,000 parliamentary aides, legislative staff, and staff of at least 8 state houses of assembly commissions. Today, NILDS is training members of parliament and their staff across Africa. It's boasting of one of the best digital libraries on the continent, and these are testimonies of effective service delivery. NILDS is raising the bar of partnership with organizations globally, with 77 MOUs so far in the can, and the agency has continued to support the nurturing of Nigeria's nascent democracy. I'm Ayodeji Makinde. That's Reshaping Democracy for now. Bye-bye.